Let's go for a spin.
If you are solving for the real needs of the customers, rest of the things will start falling in line automatically.
The journey of Spinny is so fascinating and inspiring for a lot of founders. And your own journey, Niraj, right? Becoming a founder and all of that. I'm very thrilled to be sitting down with you and let's go for a spin.
My pleasure, Pankaj. So thanks a lot for hosting me and thanks for the compliments.
Let us start from the start.
Okay.
This name Spinny, how and why did you get it?
Okay. Interesting question. So, as a founder, Spinny is my third startup. So when I was contemplating to start Spinny, after moving on from my second startup, this was very clear that I want to do this from a long-term perspective, right? So maybe 10 years, 20 years, maybe rest of life. And that was very clear that I am going to do this for long term. And if you want to build something for long term, then you will need to solve a really big pain point or a really big need of people, something which is really very important for people, right? So this was very clear that Spinny won't be just about chasing the used car market opportunity. This will be more about solving for the emotion behind buying and owning a car, right? The stuff you do with your car on daily basis, your entire family, your kids. So with cars, people have very different kind of affiliation, right?
Yes.
And it's when you're buying your first car, it's a very important, very aspirational, very emotional purchase for you, for your entire family. Yeah, it's some kind of unlock also. So this was very clear that we are not going just after the used car market opportunity, but we are going to solve for trust and experience and aspirations of the new age young people. So Spinny will be more about that. So we were very clear that we don't want car term in our brand name.
Ah,
Yes. So we were looking for something, that resonates with those emotions behind buying and owning a car, but still not having the car term in the brand name. So, I was basically, basically coining lots of terms on daily basis. And I was very clear that, the term should be, energetic, quirky, small, forward looking. And we are talking about experience and trust. So feminine sounding also. But at the same time, we won't use car term, but at the same time, that brand name, that term should respect those emotions also.
wow.
So I came up with the name Spinny, right? So if you buy a new car and I'm meeting you after that for the first time, then I'll tell you that let's go for a spin, right? So we are respecting that emotion and we are still not using the car term, basically. So this is like the brand name is in a way saying that Spinny is not just about the cars. It is much bigger than that, right? It is about those emotions, those aspirations, right? But at the same time, we are respecting those emotions.
Wow, that is so thoughtful.
Yeah.
I think also the name, the term itself is short.
So
sweet.
when we came with the name Spinny, right? So Spinny.com was very costly, right? So a small name, so blocked by somebody, and that guy was asking, huge price, and of course we were not in a position to pay that kind of price. So we thought that brand name will be Spinny, but our website can be My Spinny. So we started with myspinny.com. My Spinny, my car, right? So we started with myspinny.com, and when we did our Series A round of funding, then the first thing we did after that round was buying the spinny.com domain. And we didn't buy it that costly. It was, I would say still cheap.
Smart choice, very smart choice.
Yeah.
I
So,
think
so we started with Delhi NCR, right? So, and since our website was myspinny.com, so in Delhi NCR, many people still call us myspinny.
That is really cool, and I think it also reflects the kind of journey you had before your Series A and everything, the kind of discipline and financial discipline that.
Yeah, we took almost 4 years to close our Series A round of funding. So multiple near-death situations before that. But yeah, that journey was really helpful, right, in figuring out the right ways to build the business figuring out the most important aspects we should be focusing upon to solve for the customers, right? So yeah, that journey was very, I would say, defining in overall scheme of things.
Quite a building block that way, Neeraj, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that comes to mind when we think of building a marketplace is who do you solve for? And when you were talking about customers, I was just wondering because a lot of time when you get funded or even before that, you think of everything from buying a PMF to trying to prove that in a hurry. So when you started up, uh, who did you solve for, supply or demand? And how did that shape after your first 4 years? If you can spend a few minutes there.
When we were in very early days, right? So market was already overcrowded. Lots of players with insane level of funding, doing very loud marketing, right? So uh, we didn't had the luxury of trying out anything inorganic, right? So we were fully focused on finding the real pain points of the customers and focusing just about keep solving for that, right? So what we realized that we shouldn't be applying established templates blindly on all problem statements. I've started believing that all problem statements, all categories, all teams are unique, right? So the templatization doesn't work everywhere, right? So for example, in our category, especially in Indian context, right? So there is huge demand supply gap in the used cars. A lot of demand, very limited supply. So because of that, sellers are always spoiled for choices.
Yes.
Right? Whatever you do for them, right? You can't build very strong loyalty, right? And you can't build lock-in. And in Indian used car market, almost every car originally comes from individual sellers, right? So irrespective of the channel, the original source in most of the cases, right, is individual sellers, right? So this was very clear that it's very difficult to build lock-in and loyalty on the supply side. For sellers, it's a one-time opportunistic selling activity, and they are looking just for the best possible prices. If a new player comes overnight and starts offering highest price, then sellers will sell their car to that player only, and that is obvious and quite understandable. So everything was pointing that there was no entry barrier on the supply side because of this demand-supply equilibrium. And on the demand side, buyers are very apprehensive about the current quality of the car, history of the car, fairness of the pricing, and the safety in the transaction process. And if anything goes wrong after the buying, then who are going to take the accountability of everything? So we realized that solving for this category means solving for buyers, solving for demand, and that was exactly opposite to the established wisdom. Because when we talk about building any marketplace, it's a very established wisdom that you need to solve for supply first.
Yeah.
But when we say that, we actually mean that you need to suppliers first, right? You bring the suppliers to the platform, incentivize them, keep them locked for some time till the time there is some traction on the demand side. And once there is some kind of equilibrium between demand and supply, you start pulling the incentives on the supply side, right? So that is the established wisdom and template about building any marketplace. But we went exactly opposite to that because we realized that there is no concept of supplier locking in this category. Suppliers are basically, original suppliers are individual sellers.
Yes.
For them, it is a one-time selling. So there is no concept of locking those sellers, and they are looking only for the best possible prices. And the question is, who will be able to provide the best possible prices in a long-term sustainable basis, right? Of course, the player who is providing the best quality and best experience on the demand side.
Yes.
If you are commanding the narrative on the demand side, then you will be the guy who will be able to charge some premium, who will be able to charge the best prices on the demand side. And then for the same margin, you can offer the most competitive prices on the supply side also.
Exactly.
So if you are winning demand, then in turn, eventually, you will be able to win supply also. And since there is no entry barrier on the supply side, there is no hurry to build direct supply funnel before solving your demand capabilities. And exactly that is what we did.
That sounds like wisdom. I know you are saying it's the opposite of wisdom. That's wisdom. Neeraj, in this phase, can you handpick your favorite mistake that you committed and what did you do after that, if at all? Because you talked about not doing what was being done. You had players in the market who had heavy cash infusion and they were going after stuff that we are talking about, but you decided not to go there. You focused on customer. So are there any lessons from any mistake in particular during this phase?
In a way, we restarted our business again from scratch with our current model in January, February 17. I think we could have done that at least a year earlier, because we were very sure that that is the only way to, once we started operating with our first model, we clearly realized that until and unless you are owning the entire value chain end to end, you won't be able to guarantee quality.
Yeah.
You won't be able to make the process seamless for your customers. And customers are looking for fully baked solution given the importance of the purchase. So you won't be able to take the accountability of what you are delivering to them. So this became very clear that going forward, the only long-term winner model could be the full stack model. But since the environment was completely against it, nobody was supporting that hypothesis. So it took some time for us to gather enough courage to pivot fully to this and restart with this model again from scratch. So I think we could have saved about almost a year kind of time.
That's really fascinating, Neeraj. And when you were talking about it, I was thinking
we were looking for external validations on that hypothesis, and finally we couldn't get one. So
that's a lesson in itself.
Yeah.
Right. But can you take us deeper through the journey of pivot? I mean, you talked about having courage as an important ingredient for a pivot. But was that the only pivot you made, or
we will need a lot of working capital? We will need to build company-owned reconditioning centers and all those things, big infrastructure. So, and of course, we didn't have that kind of resources and backing back then. So we thought that a transitory pilot could be like park and sell kind of pilot. Right. So it's not a listing, right? Idea was to get exclusive custody of the inventory so that we are able to make the process seamless for the customers. It's not a tri-party coordination, right? So getting exclusive custody of the inventory. So, and still, not investing in the inventory or the big infrastructure or the reconditioning centers, right? So we did a park and sell pilot, right? In second half of 2016. Once you have a potential buyer ready to buy that car, you are still dependent on the final price approval from the seller. So again, some kind of coordination with seller. So we realized that this will make sense for buyers, right? This is making sense for buyers, but given the entitlement sellers have, right, in this category because of the demand supply gap, right? It would make sense to complete the transaction with sellers first, and then do the transaction with the buyers after having the exclusive control of the inventory.
This sounds very fascinating.
Yeah.
The pivot itself, but also...
And that also, gave us confidence that, once we pivot to full stack, then it will become very operationally heavy, right? And the risk will be much larger, right? And the tech should be able to, help us navigate through that risk. So whether we are tech and product wise ready or not, right? So that pilot also, helped us, build some confidence that we will be able to operate with full stack model.
And I find it interesting and very fascinating and rich, Neeraj, is because this idea of a mini pivot, where you are almost like testing a pivot, whether you want to commit to a full-blown pivot or not. So the related questions here in my mind Number one, what are the signals for you when you think of converting this mini pivot into full blown? If, for example, in this case, you were to abort this pivot or not commit to it, what could be those signals? Can you help me
Very
understand?
interesting question, Pankaj. I'm really glad that you asked that. So, I believe that your gross margins, your CAC, and reference rates are clear signals of the acknowledgement customer is having about your value add. Right? If CAC continues to be very high, if it's not going down, if reference rate is not very high, right? If gross margins are not healthy, that means that customers are not acknowledging your value add. If they are acknowledging your value add, they will refer people your services even without a reference bonus because they care about their friends, their family members. So if they believe about some service, they will refer to that service even without a reference bonus, right? And if that kind of network effect is basically is getting built, then that will reflect in basically optimization of CAC. People will be willing to pay for your services. They will be willing to pay some premium. That should reflect in your gross margins. So if you are struggling with your gross margins, if you are struggling with your CAC, if you're not seeing insanely high reference rates, that means that people are not acknowledging your value add enough. So you should, go back to the drawing board and you should try to think that what are the real pain points of the customers because you are already operating on the ground. So you should be able to understand their needs, their expectation, and then you can do the mapping that are you, attending to those needs, in the right way or not. So your only focus should be, attending to the real needs of the customers, right? Not chase any vanity metric. If you are solving for the real needs of the customers, rest of the things will start falling in line automatically.
And it is so reassuring to hear you say this, Niraj, because everything that you talked about, from gross margin to customer centricity, these are some of the simplest metric.
Yeah.
Age-old metrics. I mean, without over-engineering. Final question in the pivot thread. I really I'm loving this. Gut feel versus data. Now,
in
what
early
is
days,
it?
it's both, right? Because in early days, you won't be able to hit enough scale. So I'm not sure if you'll have enough data. You'll have early trends, right? You'll have some data, but I'm not sure if you'll have enough data. So it's both. It's gut feel and your data. You should spend as much time with your customers as possible, right? So you can validate your gut feel while spending time with your customers. And one more thing I would like to add here that, whatever study, research, validations, pivots you have to do, you should try to maximize it in your early days. Because doing these pivots, at a scale is really difficult. It can break things, right? So when you are in early days, right, don't get satisfied by any false validation. Don't be in any kind of hurry, right? In early days, people are in a lot of hurry, right? So drop that desperation and be sure about figuring out the right solution for your customers, the real solution for your customers. And once you have clarity about that, then you can start scaling very fast, and you can also recover for the lost initial pace.
This is why, Neeraj, I find it very fascinating the way you talked about being slow early in the journey, because that space allows you to make these pivots, right? Nothing existential.
I'll be very honest about that. We didn't had any other choice, right? So that was a kind of blessing in disguise.
Okay, coming to choice now. I think the other thread that comes to my mind is for Spinny, when you entered the market, it was a crowded market. You had some heavyweights out there with deep pockets, wisdom, if I may call that, everything. How was that entering a market late with so many players? Can you handpick some lessons there?
So when we started building, all of my well-wishers were like, "This is a suicide. Don't do this." Right? And that was one of the major reason, because market was very crowded. A lot of people already had a lot of funding. So that was the major reason that we took so long to do our Series A, because more validation was expected from us about our model, about our execution capability, about scalability of model and scalability of our team. So everybody was like, don't do this. This category is done and dusted. But I was very passionate about this category. I was able to relate that how important this purchase is for people, and and given that kind of importance, right, this purchase has for people. So I was able to relate that what kind of solution, what kind of service brand should be created to cater to that expectation in the right way. And I realized that there are lots of players, but everybody has their own reason. And the kind of reason I had to enter this market, I found that reason missing among other players. So I thought that I'm coming with the right intent, and I'm coming from a long-term perspective, and it's a real need, big pain point, and big category, growing category, and nobody is executing for the right reason. I'll execute for the right reason, and I'm in no hurry. So I was sure that with time, we should be able to create a corner for ourselves. Honestly, at that time, we were not thinking that we would be able to become number one, and we were fine with that. But we were very sure that with time, we should be able to get some handsome share of the market. We should be able to create a corner for ourselves. With the time, we started gaining more and more confidence, and then we started chasing for the leadership position and all. But that was not the thought from the day one.
That's again very interesting. Creating a corner and not getting cornered. uh, how did all this?
We thought that we will, do it step by step, right?
Yeah, that's
So once we have a corner, then we can start thinking about the leadership and all. So that is how we started, in spite of market so much crowded, and with a lot of funding already in the market.
How do you translate all of this to your team? Because when you are competing with the rivals that are perhaps bigger, more aggressive, and
Category was helpful, right? So
was?
this is a purchase everybody can relate to, all families can relate to. So once you have a clear vision, and it's a kind of authentic vision, then nobody is a fool, right? People are able to see through it, and they can relate with it, number one, and number two, they can see that you are very authentic about it, and that is what people need, right? People need basically a team where they can drop their insecurities, right? And they can basically enjoy the chemistry, and with a real sense of a common team, they can start chasing the common vision, the common shared vision. Yeah. So the category, the nature of the purchase was very helpful. When I talked about the prospective team members, that why this needs to be solved, right? And what will be our long-term ambition here, and everybody was fully convinced that the purchase is so important that if you're able to solve for it, right? Of course, it will take time, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, and we might not be able to reach there. But in case if you are able to solve for it, then given the nature of the purchase, right? If you're able to solve for it, then there is a clear shot at building one of the central brands of the country, right? We have a clear, opportunity to build Spinny as a synonym of trust and experience in the society, right? So that's and if you're able to build a Spinny as that kind of brand, then it's not just about creating value, right? On top of that, the entire journey will be really satisfying and fulfilling for everyone. And this resonated with all prospective team members like anything. So having this clear and authentic vision helped a lot in building our team.
And this takes me to the early question I asked, solving for supply or demand. As you scale a marketplace, is there any changes on that front?
So we have enough strong momentum on the demand side now. So, and we, uh, for some time, we started putting a lot of focus on solving for direct supply, and now the direct supply momentum is also very strong. So initially, idea was that keep strengthening the capabilities on the demand side, right? Of course, that also means the inspection capability and reconditioning capability. Many people will think that as a part of supply only. So what we were not doing was not building the direct supply funnel initially. We were putting all our bandwidth and resources towards strengthening our quality control, experience control, and demand side capabilities, right? And building the right culture in the team in a bottom up manner. So once we had enough, there is no end to that, right? We will keep doubling down there. But once we had enough comfort that we have certain kind of control over those aspects, then we thought that now is the time to start solving for direct supply also. The direct supply contribution has gone from 10% to 20% plus. So our hypothesis, right, initial hypothesis that if you are winning demand, then eventually you will be able to win supply also. That clearly got proven.
Ah, that is good.
Yeah.
And good reaffirmation also, right? On the journey itself.
Yeah.
The final 2-3 insights I need to unlock, and one of them is got to do with Testbed itself. I forgot to ask that early enough. When you were about to launch or build this out, how did you think of a test market? What went inside that decision making? Where to start from? Can you help me take through the building blocks of it?
So when we were starting up, so very limited resources, right? So you cannot start spraying and praying. So you should be very thoughtful and mindful about your choices. So we started only with Gurgaon, our first model, and the response was very encouraging. And we also realized that operating only in Gurgaon was kind of inefficient, because your cars are listed in Gurgaon, but someone from Delhi might be interested in that car. So we realized that the operation should cover entire Delhi NCR. So we started from Gurgaon, but immediately we started doing entire Delhi NCR. But we kept ourselves limited only to Delhi NCR, and we basically understood more about the category, the nuances, then developed the hypothesis about the right model going forward. When we were starting up, we had not anticipated that our first model will not work, right? But we were honest to the signals we were getting from the day-to-day execution, and then we realized that there are lots of models possible. Other players were doing different models, right? Every player has their own hypothesis. Somebody was doing horizontal classified, somebody was doing vertical classified, somebody was doing auction transactions. So every player has their own hypothesis. But we realized that the only long-term winner model can be the full stack model, right? So we pivoted to that. But again, after the pivot, again, no resources. So for close to a year, we operated only in Gurgaon after the pivot. Then after 1 year, we started Delhi. So with pivot was in January, February 17, and till mid 19, right? I would say March, April 19. So little more than 2 years. For little more than 2 years, for that kind of period, we were operating only in Delhi NCR, right? And once we did our Series A, so after our Series A in April 19, it was not like that we opened too many markets in one go, right? Even after our Series A, we added only Bangalore. After Delhi NCR, Bangalore was our second market. So we went live in Bangalore in April, May 19, that time. And again, for 6-7 more months, right, we didn't start any other market. So till end 19, right, we were operating only in Delhi NCR in Bangalore, right?
Why, Niraj? Because normally, where you're coming from is constraint, and it's fascinating how constraint leads to decision making, which sounds sane.
Right.
But why, even after Series A, you could have?
We realized that this category is not about splurging money, right? Whatever amount of money you throw into marketing, right, that is not going to help you. Marketing will create awareness. People will get to know about you, right, by seeing your ads or something like that. But just because of seeing your ads, people will not buy a car from you. This is a reference plus ref check category, right? So either they will buy a car from you because of someone referred, or let's say they get to know about you by seeing your ads. Then after that, they will start doing some kind of ref check in their network, and if you pass that ref check, then only they will buy their car from you, right? So it is not just about getting the best possible deal, right? We talked enough about the importance of this purchase, so they can't go wrong with this purchase. It's also about safety and well-being of the entire family. The whole family is going to travel in that car, so they cannot afford to go wrong with this purchase. So this is a reference plus ref check category. So we realized that very early in our journey, and that really helped, right? So irrespective of what kind of marketing our competitors are doing, on demand side, that was not very helpful. On demand side, you need to build a proven track record first, and on top of that, you can start scaling. And we did that market by market.
And that's very fascinating because we live in an age, or we have lived through a time period when people were buying PMF to get that right. But it's inspiring, Niraj, how you did that. The other related thing in building marketplaces is how do you keep the suppliers happy or loyal? I know you're talking of individual suppliers who may have one-time transaction, but even then, is there a playbook that you have?
So again, that also luckily worked in our favor. So in the first phase, our focus was streamlining processes and product integrations on the demand side. So once we started solving for direct supply funnel, right? So we went from the demand background with that kind of culture in the team, with that kind of maturity in our processes and product integration. And when we started offering that kind of experience to our sellers, so it was not like that we were just offering the best possible prices in most of the cases, but our experiences and our processes are also far superior than anybody else because we came from that kind of background.
Yeah, fortune favors the brave. It's amazing how a lot of things you did early started actually paying.
Yeah,
you
luckily many things worked in our favor. So initially, what we were thinking, in our early days, so we were thinking that we are not getting enough attention, or we are not getting enough acknowledgement, right? So a lot of hardship. But later on in our journey, we realized that those things started working in our favor.
Okay. On a more final note, Neeraj, if you were to look at a checklist, a survivor's checklist for someone who is building a marketplace, from your journey with Spinny, are there one or two things that must be avoided? The kind of common mistakes that people must avoid, and then the things that they must make sure it's in place. If you were to pick,
Don't start chasing growth, right? Until and unless you are really sure about your product and services. Spend enough time with your customers, spend enough time on the ground, be very basically receptive about the feedback, the signals, be very honest with yourself, right? And once you are really sure about you're solving or attending the real needs, the real pain point, right? Then only you should start chasing growth.
there is a lot of show don't tell with everything that you are saying, because it's not preachy at all, which is what I like about this conversation. So my final question to you is exactly opposite of everything we have discussed.
Okay.
This is something I ask my guests to wrap things up. We're talking about a category which is about transport, and what is a science fiction view of the business that you are in? How wild can it get? If we were to have this conversation 100 years from now, how do you think your business will be around like? I can give you a clue. Last conversation I had with Raghu,
Okay.
Taxi for Sure, I
Yeah,
asked him
yeah.
this question. He talked about teleport.
Raghu is a great supporter. He's on our cap table also.
Okay, so now you have to give a different answer. He talked about teleporting as a mode of transport.
Okay.
So he's gone that far. But in your business where you are, how do you think it would look like decades down?
I don't believe that I'm into business of cars. Right. I'm very clear that Spinny is a service brand, and we are solving for trust and experience. Yeah.
That answers all of that. Thank you, Niraj. It's a joy
Thanks,
talking to you.
Pankaj.
This was fun.
Thank you.
So much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.